أعزائي طلاب الصف الأول الثانوي، أهلا بكم في الحلقة الرابعة من تدريس الأحياء باللغة الإنجليزية. Last round we are talking about the biological macromolecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. This is essentials in our life. Okay? Today study nucleic acid. I say a few previously about the nucleic acid. Nucleic acid, blueprint of life. What the meaning of blueprint of life? هو أساس الحياة. Why? Because the DNA at a nucleic acid enters the structures of the RNA. RNA transcribed. What the meaning of transcribed? نسخ. يعني يحصل له عملية نسخ من DNA. Okay? RNA is transcribed from DNA. So RNA means essentials and senses as protein. So the DNA is considered the blueprint of life. Okay, today we now discussing about the nucleotide, its main essential structures of the nucleic acid. Nucleic acid, biological macromolecule made up of small molecules. It's called nucleotide. What the meaning of nucleotide? Is the basic building unit of the nucleic acid and consists of 3 units, which are: number 1, molecules of pentose sugars. It consists of 5 carbon atoms, and 3 are 2 main types of sugars, which are deoxyribose. That means that pentose sugars is called monosaccharide. We studied it previously in carbohydrates. Pentose sugars, C5H10O5. What the meaning of the monosaccharide? It consists of essentially 1 saccharide only. Okay, main structure or essentials for the nucleic acid, it's called pentose sugars. There are 2 types of sugars enter the structure of nucleic acid. Why? Because there is 2 different types of the nucleic acid. First one, DNA. What the meaning of DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Number 2, RNA. What the meaning of RNA? RNA is ribonucleic acid. What the differentiation between them? Study it in the next steps. Okay. First one, what the meaning of deoxyribose? D, that means that deficiency. Oxy, deoxyribonucleic acid, deficiency of oxygens، يعني نقص ذرة oxygens عن الريبوز. يعني the meaning structures C5H10O4. But the ribose sugars that enter the structures in the RNA C5H10O5. Okay. Phosphate groups, it is essentials. Discussing in it, in this point, the main component of the nucleic acid: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. What the meaning of phosphorus? Phosphate group PO4, negative atomic group, studied in the chemicals. Okay. Now we can explain you about what is the nucleotide. Nucleotide is essentials as it's okay. Nucleotides, pentose sugars or ribose sugars. Carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, connecting with the carbon number 5. Carbon number 1 is connecting with nitrogen bases. What the meaning of nitrogen base? Explaining it now. Okay. Nitrogen is adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. Nitrogen base attaching with the carbon's atoms. Number 1, sugar molecules by covalent bond, and 3,5 nitrogen bases, which are adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Okay, in DNA molecules. And uracil replacing thymines in RNA molecules. It's present in RNA molecules instead of thymines. Now I can explain you about what the difference between the nitrogen bases. Adenine plus guanine, it's called purine, 2 double ring. And thymine and cytosines, it's called pyrimidine, single ring. Okay. From the previous, it's clear that the nucleic acid DNA differs the nucleic acid RNA in the type of the pentose sugars. Okay, that's right. Take your time, please. I can ask questions about that point. What's the difference between DNA and RNA? From name, you can know and differentiation between them from name. DNA, RNA. DNA, it's called deoxy, deficiency in oxygen carbons. Ribonucleic acid, no deficiency in oxygen, C5H10O5. Okay? It's clear that the nucleic acid DNA differs from the nucleic acid RNA in the type of pentose sugars, and one of the nitrogenous bases that's forming in it is replacing adenine with thymine. Okay. in the DNA molecule, the number of adenine pairs A refers to the samples A equals the number of thymine pairs at T. Okay, the number of guanine pairs G equals the number of cytosine pairs. Okay, the each nucleotide it essentials enter the structure phosphate group BA4. What would happen if no phosphate group that found? It's not considered nucleotide, not considered essentials and essential structures of the DNA. Why? Because the phosphate group is essential structures of the DNA, and so that it in RNA. Okay. The carbon number 1, C previously, it's connecting with the carbon number, nitrogen bases, C previously is connecting with the carbon number 1. Okay, and the phosphate group is connecting with the carbon number 5. So it's simple figures of DNA molecules. It consists of C5H10O4 ribose sugars, okay, and phosphate sugars BO4 connecting with the carbon number 4, connecting with the carbon number 5. So a phosphate group is connecting directly with the carbon number 5. Simple figures of RNA molecules, it's C5H10O4 ribose sugars, and the phosphate group is connecting directly with the carbon number 5 and replacing thymine nitrogenous base that found previously in DNA, replacing with the uracil that's found in RNA. Okay. Now, can you previously phone about your test yourself about these questions? Test yourself with the correct answers. Which of the following is similar to the DNA in the presence of the phosphorus element in the structures? Okay, take your times. Please, dear student, I'll ask you about what's the difference, or that's the following similars in DNA presence in the phosphorus element in the structures. Study previously casein, essential proteins that found in the milk. Okay, it's consistent of amino acid proteins plus phosphorus, right? And others, it's called phospholipids, essential carbon, hydrogen, oxygens, and nitrogen. So the best answer, take your times, so which mean to tell these answers. Phosphorus, phospholipids, A, B, glycogens, caseins, and A and C. Okay. Second questions, rat differs from the rabbit because the cell of each one of them is contains A, different inorganic molecules, B, different large-sized organic molecules, C, different molecules of lipids, D, different sequence of nucleotides. Okay, we can differentiations. This is I can't talk about the DNA. آية من آيات الله عز وجل الدي ان ايه ثابت كونستانت في كل مخلوقات الله عز وجل، وإن دل على شيء فيثبت إن الإله واحد أحد. DNA is constant to all living organisms, humans, animals, virus, bacteria, and any another living organism. It consists of 4 nucleotides: adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. What is the difference between living organisms to others? ايه الديفرنس اللي بيني انا كهيومنز وبين اللي هو الكاتس او الدوجز؟ sequence on DNA nucleotide, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. There is a difference in sequence. So they can differentiation between the species, all species. So maybe one of the student told me another the woman is blacks or the man is whites. No, it's all in the same species. So it's a sequence of nucleotide in the same species. It's a similars but differs from a species to another. يعني من جنس إلى جنس آخر. Okay. Classification of nucleic acid. There are the 2 types of nucleic acid, which are deoxyribonucleic acid DNA and ribonucleic acid RNA. So take your times. Please pay attention. Take in your consideration these questions to skills about think, pair, and shares. Okay? First one, this best answers, D, A, and C. Phospholipids plus caseins. Number 2, sequence in nucleotide, it's called D, the best answers. Right. Okay. The following tables, I can explain you about the difference between the DNA and RNA. From study, from these lessons, and explaining the previous point, we can differentiations between the DNA and the RNA from pentose sugars. Okay. Each one of them essentials, monosaccharides, pentose sugars. What the meaning of pentose sugars is contain 5 carbons. So DNA, deoxy. There is a difference. First one, we can reduce from this memory and your point knowledge from this comparison in the schedules. Point of comparisons. Types of the pentose sugars that found in the deoxyribonucleic acid. It's called deoxyribose sugars. RNA, ribose sugars. There is a difference between deoxyribose sugars and ribose sugars. What's the difference? Deficiency in oxygen atom. So the chemical structures of ribose sugars that enters the RNA is 5H10O5. But that enters the DNA, it's 5H10O4. Right. Second one, second steps from the other comparisons. Nitrogenous bases, adenine and thymine, guanine and cytosine. Okay, in DNA. In RNA, adenine, guanine, uracil, replacing with thymines and cytosine. Number of strand, DNA double helix. What the meaning of double helix? حلزون أو لولب بالعربي. حلزون أو لولب. يعني إيه؟ يعني يوني شكل الضفيرة كده. تمام؟ أوكي. ده آية من آيات الله عز وجل أيضا. Okay? To give a proper correct. What the meaning? This point is not study. We study it, will be study it previously إن شاء الله in grade 12 اللي هي third secondary stage المرحلة الثانوية. Why DNA is double helix? And it opposite directions. Prime 5 to prime 3, prime 3 to prime 5. To give a proper correct between the hydrogen bond between nitrogenous base. This is nitrogenous base is connection to helix, to strand in each others to give a proper correct between the hydrogen bond and the two strand of the DNA. And all the strand act as templates to producing a new complementary strand in DNA. Right, okay. So the strand in the DNA, double strand. Single strand in RNA. Site of its presence, okay. Carried on the chromosome inside the cell's nucleus. So the DNA, it's found only in nucleus, not transferred from nucleus, not at all, okay, because it's found inside the chromosomes. Chromosomes, it consists of 2 chromatides and centromere from each other. Each chromosome, it contains 1 molecules from DNA. About the ribonucleic acid RNA, it's transcribed from the nucleic acid DNA inside the nucleus. Then it transfers into cytoplasm to make protein synthesis. We study it in the next about the cell ultracell structures, ribosome, and the ER rough and ER smooth. Okay. Deoxyribonucleic acid DNA carries the genetic informations. So the sequence you get from one living organism to another living organism, we can study all inherited trait from the DNA. احنا بنشوفه بنسمع كلنا كلمة DNA نقدر نعمل كونفيرم اللي هو في الجرائم الكريمنالز حاجة اسمها الفورسنيك الطب الشرعي DNA. Why? Because the DNA it carries the genetic materials from parent to offspring, from ancestors من جميع الأسلاف اللي هي من الأب للأم الإيه للآخر. Okay. Carries the genetic information that is transferred from generation to another when the cells is divided and them informations are responsible for appearance. The distinctive characteristic. What the meaning of distinctive characteristics? That means that we can differentiations between long hairs, short hairs, curly hairs, color of eye, tallness, shortness. These characteristics that found previously inherited from parents to offspring. Right. Okay. Apparent and distinctive is a characteristic of the living organism. Organism all the vital activity of the cells. But ribonucleic acid RNA, it used the building or synthesizing. What the meaning of synthesizing? Form it or make. يعني بيعمل أو بينسخ. Sorry, بيعمل أو بيشتغل على كمية البروتينز. The protein which the cell needed, these proteins are responsible for appearance, the genetic trait. So both of them essential to each other. I called you from the previous DNA blueprint of life. Appearance, the genetic traits, organization, the vital activity, and the cells. Right. Okay. Which of the following responsible for the carbohydrates in the structures of RNA? Okay. Uracils, ribose, and adenine deoxyribose. That's right. It's called ribose. Why? Ribose is essential structure of the RNA. Okay. What the monomers of hydrogen atoms Okay, sorry, what is the number of hydrogen atoms in the sugar that enter the structure of the DNA? Number of hydrogen that enter the structures of the structure of DNA. C5H10O4 DNA. So the number of hydrogen, take your times and give me answers. Take in your considerations the chemical structures of ribose enter the structure of DNA C5H10O4. Okay? In the opposite figures, okay, there is the nucleotides. In this one, connecting from the carbon number 1. Carbon number 1 contains the nitrogenous base, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. Okay? The monosaccharide sugars whose structure C5H10O4. Therefore, the figure representing the structures unit of DNA, RNA, okay, starch, nucleic acid. That's right. Which of the following representing the similarity among the molecules? Building structures of sugars. A. Type of nitrogenous base. C. Phosphate groups. Okay, and the site of the presence. Okay, this is, take your times. You use the skills. Think, pair, share, and take your time to answer these main questions. Okay, that's right. Okay, DNA play an important role in our life. So, its two-strand double helix is connected together by nitrogenous base. Adenine connecting with the thymine, 2 hydrogen bond. Guanine with cytosine, 3 hydrogen bond. Okay, why adenine and thymine and the guanine connect with each other? To connections the 2 helix. Okay, permanently, all times, DNA 2-strand, one running from prime 5 to 3 and the other running from prime 3 to 5, and this is in opposite direction. Why? To give a proper correct about the hydrogen bond between nitrogenous bases that's connecting to each other. That's right. This now we can ending from the explanations upon the nucleic acid, DNA, and RNA. In this lessons, comparisons between DNA and RNA structures, sugars that enter the structures, nitrogenous bases, what the difference between them, site of the presence, and another types of each one of them. Okay, second point, what the meaning of the metabolic or metabolism? Metabolism in Arabic عملية التمثيل الغذائي essential for life. بدون metabolic no essential for life. لا توجد حياة. Okay? الميتابوليك is the vital process by which the living organism utilized from a digestive and absorbed food. Okay? After digestion process, the foods, it's returning to the essentials. For example, carbohydrate returning to the monosaccharide, examples, glucose, and protein returning to the essentials, building unit, amino acid, and the fats is returning to the essential fatty acid plus glycerol, and go to the roots, 2 roots in our body. Number 1, it's called blood root, and second, it's called lymphatic root. We study it. We will study it, inshallah, next grade 11s, inshallah, next years. Okay. Metabolism, it's a group of continuous biochemical reactions that take place inside the living organism cells, and its stop lead to the death of the living organism. Why? Because it is essential for life to producing energy. We can differentiate between the 2 types of the metabolic. Metabolic is 2 subtitles, 2 branches, or 2 types. Number 1, catabolic or catabolism. Second, anabolism or anabolic. What is the difference between catabolic and anabolic? Catabolic, it's always accompanied with releasing energy. يعني دايما مصحوبة بانطلاق طاقة. Catabolic. For example, oxidation of glucose inside the mitochondria, inside the living cells, to producing a large amount of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, essential for life. Without respirations, no life. It's lead to death. يعني معنى كده ان الاسينشالز بتاعتنا الاساسيه اللي هي حرق الجلوكوز في السيلز يؤدي الى اوكسيديشنز وخروج كميه كبيره جدا من الاي تي بي. اوكي، so it's essential for our life. Okay, anabolic, a process using the simple molecules to building up more complex substance throughout a chain of reaction. What the meaning of chain of reactions? For example, the plant make a photosynthesis process, okay? Raw materials, carbon dioxide, CO2 plus H2O in essentials, light, energy, chlorophyll A or chlorophyll B give us C6, H12O6 in essential carbons plus O2 evolves and H2, right? So the difference, we can from this point when explaining it, we can differentiation between catabolic and anabolic. Catabolic, releasing energy, accompanied with releasing energy. But anabolic, building. What's the meaning building? Raw materials, smalls, from monomer to polymer, by helping energy that releasing from the catabolic. That's right. Okay, for example, releasing energy that resulting from the glucose oxidations during cellular respirations inside the living cells. Examples from the anabolic, synthesized or synthesis of the protein from the amino acid in photosynthetic process. What the meaning of photosynthetic process? Photosynthetic phosphorylations, it's essential vital process that's occur inside the chloroplast in green plants to make a photosynthesis process. That's right. Okay. Macromolecules, what the meaning of macromolecules and micromolecules? Study it previously and explaining it well. Macro, large molecules. Micro, small molecules. Okay. Macromolecules, catabolic. Macromolecules, anabolic. Okay. There's no difference between anabolic and catabolic. Anabolic, that means that anabolism. Catabolic, that means that anabolism. Okay. Macromolecules, changing from macro into micro, that means that catabolic, and it's accompanied or associated with energy، يعني مصاحبه بكميه كبيره جدا من الايه؟ الطاقه. Okay. Micromolecules change into macromolecules. Okay, that means that, for example, amino acid plus amino acid plus amino acid plus amino acid, and finally give us proteins. It's called anabolic building unit. Okay, and consumed a large amount of energy. That's right. Okay. Important of the metabolism. Please, dear student, please concentrate for me with this now. Okay. In our body, there is a two process it occurs daily life. Okay. First one catabolic, and second it's called anabolic. For examples of the anabolic, growth of the body and repairing the damaged tissue. Anabolism, what the meaning? When you cutting or injuring the cells every day from the skins or another's injury or surgical operations that occur from the human, the doctor advisable eat a large amount of the proteins. Why? To compensating the damaged parts. So it's called anabolic from amino acid plus amino acid. Finally, give a large molecules. It's called proteins. So it's called anabolic. Obtaining energy required for the performing in the vital activity of the cells. Catabolism. For example, oxidation of the glucose inside the living cells. Okay? Not all process of breaking the chemical bonds among the molecules are known as a catabolic process. For example, digestions. Okay, digestions play an important role. Digestions, large molecules, it transfer into small molecules. It's called the catabolic or anabolic? No, this is a chemical reaction. It's occurred by helping enzymatic actions from large molecules, small molecules. For example, a large size of meat space, it transfer finally into amino acid. قطعة لحمة كبيرة تتحول إلى إلى أمينو أسيد بيدخل في الجلوكوز بيدخل في البلد directly until reaching to the play an important role for the anabolic. يعني ببني جسمي عن طريق مين؟ الأمينو أسيد اللي هو essential element enter the structures of the amino acid. Okay. So this is not called applied for the catabolic or anabolic. As this process needing energy to breaking the chemical bond, but no energy is really resulting. While the catabolism is the process of breaking bonds among the molecular atoms and producing energy. Right. Okay. Take your time, please. These questions, please. Anabolic and catabolic process. What's the difference between them? I explaining you from that point, multiple choice questions, MCQ, A, B, C, and D. Anabolic and catabolic process. The first process is polymerizations, and second process is oxidations. B, this first process producing energy, and second process consume energy. C, the first process oxidations, and second process is polymerizations. D, they always occur in the same organelles of living organism. Okay, please pay attention. Monomer and polymers and polymerizations. Monomer plus monomers, finally polymerizations. It's called polymer. Monomer plus monomer plus monomer give us polymers. Amino acid plus amino acid, it's finally proteins. Proteins, polymer. Amino acid, monomers. This process is called polymerization. So it's applied in the anabolic. But polymer in two monomers applied in catabolic, but it releasing a large amount of energy storage in the form of ATP. I said that before. ATP is standard universal currency of energy inside the cells. Take your time in these questions. Please give answer after think per se and okay, make a previous revisions about the main point at explaining. Okay. Answer A. Okay, answer A. Why A? Because the anabolic, it's called polymerizations. Monomer plus monomer plus monomers. But the catabolic, it's called oxidations. Why? Catabolic enters the glucose molecules enter the mitochondria of the living cells to oxidize and producing a large amount of ATP, standard universal currency of energy inside the cells. That's right. Okay. Oh, I can ask you about this process in all living cells. It's occurred by helping on enzymes. Enzyme is essential for life. Why? Enzyme is very important to our life. Why? Because it's catalyst. As the chemical reaction, it's occurs. And your chemicals make a blocking the analysis. Any questions about the equations in the chemistry needing to the catalyst to speed the chemical reaction inside the laboratory. Okay, so the enzyme play an important role. They are a chemical compound at the same speed the chemical reaction inside the living cells. So the enzyme can define biological catalyst made up of proteins. Okay, it speeds the chemical reaction inside the living cells. Okay, so catabolic, anabolic, metabolic, any vital process it's okay inside the living cells needing essential enzymes to accelerate the reaction. I ask you a question, please, dear student. Enzyme essential for the chemical reactions. Without enzymes, chemical reactions is okay or no? Take your times. Okay. The chemical reactions inside the living cells, it's okay, but slowly. So the enzyme it play an important role is the accelerate the speed of the chemical reaction and reduce the activation energy. بدل ما انا اخد كميه كبيره جدا من الطاقه في جسمي اوظفها في حاجه ثانيه. سو الانزيمز عشان كده الانزيم بيشتغل بشكل سريع جدا يزود من قيمه التفاعل ويقلل اكبر قدر من الطاقه المستهلكه. عشان كده الانزيمز يعتبر كاتاليست. اوكي. In order for the biochemicals reactions that occurs in the cell, they needed a high activation energy. That's right. So the activation energy is found in our body. It's inversely proportional with the enzymes. Enzyme found activation energy low, so the enzymes decrease the consumption of the activation energy. Okay, that's right. Where the activation energy is the minimum energy needed to start the chemical reaction, and to reducing the cell consumptions of the more energy, there should be catalyzed enzymes to ensure the occurrence of the chemical reactions rapidly. The opposite graph, we can see it, the activation energy and the enzymes, inversely proportions. Activation energy high, enzyme not found. Activation energy is low, enzyme is found, so reducing the activation energy. Okay? Dear life, the action of some enzymes needing the presence of the waters, either inside or outside the cells, according to the place of the enzymes action. So fruits and vegetables are stored by drying them in order to stop the action of these enzymes. Therefore, no chemical change take place that may affecting the fruits and the vegetable validity. Okay. يعني بنقول ببساطة شديدة جدا ان لازم الحاجات اللي فيها كميه ميه كتير جدا بتساعد في عمليه الرياكشنز. عشان كده البكتيريا ممكن تنشط في وسط فيه ميه كتير جدا. اللي احنا بنعمل درايد فروت، بنجفف الفواكه بحيث ان هي تشتغل في شكل جميل ورائع بدون ما يحصل لها spoiled or validity بتاعتها او الاكسباير بتاعها ينتهي. عشان كده قللت كميه الميه، بالتالي الانزيم بتاعت البكتيريا او اي ميكروبز او باثوجينز او فانجس او بكتيريا او فيروس no inactivations in this. So it's preserved in dried food. Right. Okay. The enzyme made up of the combinations of the large numbers of the amino acid that form a chain for more of the polypeptide, which forms the specific special structures of enzymes. Properties of the enzymes are similar to the other chemical catalysts because they participate in the chemical reactions inside the cells to speed them up without being affecting on consumers. Enzymes are highly specific. Each enzyme has a specific substrate. وإن شاء الله بإذن الله study it in the next round. Okay. Thanks for you a lot. Greetings from me, Mr. Hatem, biology teacher. I hope to meet you. You are well. Thanks a lot for you, dear students. Thanks and goodbye.